I'm still talking to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Well, Isabel, you'll be shocked and stunned to learn that Downing Street isn't very keen on you right now. You're not in their good books because you have broken an important story, I think, certainly a relevant story, certainly a story the public have a right to know. And that is that our undear leader, the lying Prime Minister Keir Starmer, has returned to the scene of that little monster Axel Rudakubana's horrific crime. He's gone up to Southport, we understand, to make some kind of a speech to sixth form college students, and there's also a suggestion that he may have met some of the relatives, the grieving relatives of the victims. Now there he is, by a big Range Rover. That's good for the planet, isn't it? And by the way, Downing Street are not denying, so you can take this as a fact, that he flew up there by private jet. One rule for him and a different one for the rest of us. I hope Ed Miliband doesn't know just how much the Prime Minister is damaging the planet. But there he is in Southport, where they really don't like him because of his perfunctory attitude to them during the aftermath of those horrific events back in the summer, because he just went up there very quickly, didn't he? Laid a wreath of flowers, refused to talk to anyone, and then left, and they haven't forgiven him for that. Also, the rest of the country doesn't like him in terms of Southport because he lied to us. He lied to us and said that those rioters were just doing it because they're far-right thugs. They were doing it because they suspected there was something to do with terrorism here. No, absolutely not true. False misinformation. They're spreading it wasn't misinformation. It was true. So he's back at the scene of his crime, if you ask me. But I think the question we have to ask here, Isabel, is what on earth does he think he's doing? And what on earth does number 10 Downing Street think they're doing? Imagining that the Prime Minister can do something like this in secret. And why does he want to do it in secret? Shouldn't he share this kind of occasion, this kind of event, this kind of visit with the people who put him into power, the voters, the electorate, the people of this country? What's all this cloak and dagger stuff about?
Well, what is it all about? One thing that I'm not about as a journalist and as a reporter on Talk is keeping cosy little secrets to keep Downing Street happy. That's not our job in the media. And if there was some sweet little deal with other political journalists not to report on this visit, I don't know what the justification was for that, but I'm not going to play that game. He is the Prime Minister, not some kind of private citizen. Now, in terms of this secretive visit to Southport today, we clearly have very few details because Downing Street was so keen to keep it quiet. I don't believe he was speaking to students at that school. It does beg the question why on earth he held the meeting at a school. But as far as I understand it, what he was actually doing was talking to relatives of the victims of Axel Rudakubana, not actually addressing students, unless you've got some information.
No. But why, again, come back to, perhaps he was addressing the students and he was practicing his vocal speech skills. We're very pleased to be here in Southport, or something like that. But why would he keep that secret? I mean, that strikes me as quite a good thing for a Prime Minister to do, a decent thing for them to do.
Well, as I said, I don't think he was doing that. I think but what is so very bizarre is that he should seek to hold a so-called private meeting with families of the Rudakubana victims in a sixth form college and then get really annoyed when teenagers were naturally kind of quite inquisitive when they found that their school was on shutdown and a bunch of streets around the school were blocked off and there were Range Rovers and security guys everywhere. I mean, was Downing Street really expecting those teenage school kids not to kind of take to social media, not to tip off their siblings, their friends, that the Prime Minister had come to their school? come on, guys.
It's
And
just
in
that
any
it's just
case-
amateur hour. But what you misunderstood what I said there, Isabel. What I'm saying is, let's forget about the alleged speech to sixth form college students, because I agree with you. It's quite clear he didn't do that. Otherwise, we would have details by now. You know what kids are like. He said this, he did this, he was wearing that, and he was with this. Well, it would be everywhere. So let's park that. What I meant was, if, as you suggested, it sounds plausible to me, that he went up there to talk to the grieving relatives of the victims, why would they want to be secret about that? That's a decent thing to do, isn't it?
So what I think's happened here is that Downing Street naturally feared that there would be protests if news of his visit got out. And sure as hell, there would be protests because, as you said, he is despised in Southport for very good reason. He's also despised up and down the country.
Everywhere.
Be that as it may, he's extra despised in Southport. So they wanted to avoid at all costs very embarrassing, humiliating footage of the Prime Minister being booed and barracked as he made this slightly shamefaced visit to Southport. That's what they were trying to avoid. And they would argue, not unreasonably, that there's a security issue around that. And the Prime Minister's movements are never publicised in advance, quite reasonably. For that, on that basis. That does not mean that media outlets like Talk and other media outlets should be censored or in any way reprimanded for covering an event like this well after the Prime Minister is on his way and is somewhere safe, well out of the area where he might have been subject to any kind of attack or if there was credible information, I don't know. But I think that Number 10 has no right whatsoever to be in a state of high indignation, as I understand they were. Now, I did ask them, how about just calling me? Please explain what it is that I've done wrong by disseminating this information. It's accurate. You've not questioned whether he was there. I mean, I've kind of got a photograph, so you can't really say he wasn't
You've more
there.
than kind of got a photograph. We've got a photograph. We've seen it. It's
Well,
him.
so what
He's
exactly
there.
is the issue? I mean, I'm all ears. If they want to give me a ring and explain the issue, but I've only heard through third parties that I'm not flavour of the month. Well, it's not my job to be flavour of the month with you guys, and trust me, your administration isn't flavour of the month with the country either.
Yeah, and there's two. This is my theory. I mean, there's two things going on here. The first is, this is a socialist administration. These are socialists. Socialists always think they can control the news media, the media agenda. That's how they go about things. We'll control this, or we won't let them do this, and they're idiots for trying to do that in what still is vaguely a free speech democracy, because journalists will find things out. You can't get the Prime Minister of this great nation to go around without being noticed. So that's why they're doing it. But the other reason that this has turned into a shambles is because they're just so amateurish. They're so amateurish. This is not professional. This is the communications department that deals with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and they're behaving like they're working for some parish council trying to keep the secrets of their jumbo sale coming up next week or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to also point out that Talk actually called Downing Street before we ran this story, because we're not in the business of just whacking stuff out there and hoping for the best that it's correct. I mean, when I was tipped off about this visit, I was naturally quite worried as to whether or not it could be a hoax. Is that definitely Keir Starmer? Is there some question mark here? So, of course, we check these things out. And we rang Number 10, and they basically sort of said nothing to, well, what they said is, we don't really have any information to give you on that, which we all know in political journalism is a
confirmation, yeah.
And means it happened. So they had an opportunity at that point to say, look, privately, because we can deal with communications teams like that. That's part of the job. They had an opportunity to say, look, this did happen, but for the following reasons, we ask you not to report it. And at that point, a judgment has to be made. Are the reasons acceptable? Are the reasons justifiable? In which case, a responsible media outlet will not publish the information. There could be all manner of reasons. I don't know what they are. Perhaps the families had begged for it to be kept secret, in which case, once again, why hold it in a sixth form college? But in any case, I think that many media organisations will respect reasonable grounds for sitting on information, in exceptional circumstances. Downing Street didn't give us any of those reasons not to publish what we publish, and so we went ahead, and then it seems that they weren't too happy. Well, boo-hoo did ums.
Yeah, to hell with them. Who cares whether or not they're happy? It's a perfectly legitimate story, and I think probably in the end the cloak of secrecy is connected to the fact Southport just spells shame for Keir Starmer. He shamefully lied to the nation.
Yeah.
He shamefully sent people to prison for 30 words on Facebook. He shamefully pretended that this awful triple murder, this awful attack had nothing to do with terrorism. It's this whole business of Southport for Keir Starmer has the spectre of shame, and that's why he tried to do this furtively, cloak and dagger, as if he was some sort of little crook trying to avoid detention. And, I expect more of our Prime Minister. It's just pathetic. This man never fails to disappoint, never fails.